All right, strap in, folks. Today, we're taking a deep dive into a murder case. And, well, it's a weird one. It's the Luigi Mangione case. You've probably heard about it.
It's certainly been hard to miss. A
Yeah.
case with so many different angles, it's almost overwhelming.
Right. And that's exactly why we're here. We're going to break it down, try to make sense of it all. But the thing is, this isn't just any murder case. I mean, people are actually supporting the guy. Like, he's got a whole fan club. It's crazy considering, well, he's accused of murder.
Yeah, the public support for Mangione, that's definitely a big part of what makes this case so interesting. To really get it, though, I think we need to start from the beginning. So the victim, that's Brian Thompson.
The CEO of UnitedHealthcare.
Right, him. He was shot on December 4th, 2024.
So right off the bat, we're talking about a really high-profile victim, the head of a huge company. That alone makes this a major story.
Absolutely. But then there's the arrest. They catch Mangione, and get this, he's carrying a ghost gun.
Okay, ghost gun. I've heard that term, but I gotta be honest, I don't really know what that means. Like, what makes a gun a ghost gun?
It's a good question, and it's actually a growing problem for law enforcement. Basically, a ghost gun is a firearm, but it's untraceable.
Untraceable how?
Well, they're often homemade, put together with parts bought online or even, 3D printed. That makes it really hard to, regulate them, keep track of them.
Wow, that's pretty scary. So Mangione had this untraceable gun, but there was more, right? He had fake IDs too.
Yeah, fake IDs, and that suggests he was planning something big. And then there's the manifesto. They found a manifesto on him.
A manifesto? Like, what was he ranting about, healthcare costs or something?
That's basically it, yeah. This whole long document just railing against the U.S. healthcare system.
Okay, so we've got a murder, a powerful victim, a ghost gun, fake IDs, and now a manifesto about healthcare. It's like something out of a movie. But the question everyone's asking is, why are people supporting this guy?
Right. It's not like a typical murder case. It's like this weird intersection of all these big issues we're facing as a society. Think about it. Have you ever been frustrated with the healthcare system?
Honestly, who hasn't? Dealing with healthcare, it's stressful, it's confusing, it can be really frustrating.
Exactly. And that's kind of the common ground here. Mangione's manifesto, yeah, it's extreme, but it taps into something a lot of people feel, this deep discontent with the way healthcare works in this country.
So even if people don't condone the violence, they understand where that frustration is coming from. I'm starting to see why this case is so complicated. It's not just a whodunit.
Right. It's like a powder cake, blowing up all these conversations about healthcare, about violence, about the power of social media. These are like the big three, the big themes that are all tangled up in this case, and that's what we're going to try to unpack.
So let's start with the healthcare system. Mangione was obviously furious about it, but he's not the only one. What else do we know about how people are feeling about healthcare in America? Why are so many people so angry about it?
Well, I think to understand why the U.S. healthcare system makes people so angry, we need to look beyond just individual complaints and really understand the big picture, how it's all set up.
All right, let's get into it. That's what we're here for, right? The deep dive. So where do we start?
One of the big criticisms, and Mangione definitely talks about this in his manifesto, is the power of insurance companies. In the U.S., healthcare is mostly provided through these private insurers, not directly by the government.
So it's not like those countries with universal healthcare where the government takes care of everything.
Right, and that creates some problems. I mean, these companies, their businesses, their main goal is to make money. So a lot of people say that focus on profit ends up hurting patients.
Yeah, I can see that. If they're trying to make money, their incentive is to pay as little as possible, even if it means people don't get the treatment they need.
Exactly. And we've seen some pretty bad examples of that in our research. There was this one case, a patient needed this life-saving treatment, but the insurance company wouldn't cover it. They said it was experimental, even though the patient's doctor was recommending it.
Man, that's awful. And it's not even just about those extreme situations. Even with insurance, the whole system is so complicated. Figuring out what's covered, what you have to pay, it's just stressful.
Yeah, no doubt. The cost of healthcare, it's a huge burden for a lot of people. It's like there's this constant fear. What if I get sick? What if I have an accident? Can I even afford the treatment?
And then that fear makes people avoid going to the doctor, even when they should. And that just makes things worse. It's like a trap.
It is a trap. And that's exactly what Mangione is talking about in his manifesto, remember? Deny, defend, depose.
Yeah, those words, they're chilling. It's like he's describing the system that's working against you, not for you.
And that message, it's resonating with a lot of people. And it's not like Obamacare solved the problem. I mean, the Affordable Care Act, It was supposed to help get more people insured, but there's still millions of Americans who have no insurance, or the insurance they have is terrible.
So even after all these reforms, the same problems are still there. Makes you wonder if the whole system just needs a complete overhaul.
That's what some people are saying. This case, as messed up as it is, it's making people think about some big changes, like Medicare for all.
Medicare for all. Okay, another term I've heard a lot, but I'm not totally clear on what that means.
So basically, Medicare for all, it would be a system where the government runs healthcare. Everyone's covered no matter what, whether you have a job or not, how much money you make. And there wouldn't be any private insurance companies.
Wow, that's a big change. So everyone would just get their health care through the government.
Exactly. The idea is to make it simpler, cheaper, and make sure everyone can get the care they need without going broke.
I bet that's pretty controversial.
Oh, totally. People have very strong feelings about it. The people who like it, they say it would make things fairer, get rid of all the bureaucracy from the insurance companies. But the people who are against it, they worry about the government having too much power, taxes going up, what it would do to the whole healthcare industry. It's a really complex issue.
Yeah, I get it. But it makes sense why people are talking about it now. It connects directly to Mangione's complaints, right? And maybe why some people, even if they don't agree with what he did, they see him as kind of a symbol of all that frustration.
Absolutely. His case, in a way, is making everyone confront these fundamental questions about how we do healthcare in this country, who it benefits, who it leaves behind. And it's not just healthcare, right? We have to talk about the violence. Mangione thinks he was justified, that he had to kill someone to make a point. And he's even comparing himself to people like Guy Fawkes, who tried to blow up Parliament, and Che Guevara, the revolutionary. But can violence ever be okay just because you believe in something?
That's a tough one. I mean, we're definitely not trying to glorify violence here, but to really understand what happened, why this case has become such a big deal, I think we need to at least try to understand that question, even if it's uncomfortable.
Right. So let's look at some history. Mangione mentions the French Revolution when they overthrew the monarchy. It was a super violent time. A lot of people died, but it also led to some huge changes.
Yeah.
Getting rid of the feudal system and, the Declaration of the Rights of Man and all that.
So in that case, the violence, it was about getting rid of a system that was really oppressive, but it came at a terrible cost.
Exactly. And that's the problem. Even when violence leads to something good, there's always suffering, loss, and it can easily get out of control, create new problems you never expected.
It's like a slippery slope. How do you even decide what violence is justified? Who gets to make that decision? And what about the people who get hurt in the process, the people who had nothing to do with it?
Those are the questions we need to be asking. Mangione thinks he's some kind of hero fighting a corrupt system, but he also took a life. And now there's a family grieving, a family that lost someone they loved. It's not simple.
Not at all. And then there's social media. That's another whole layer to this whole thing. And it's a big reason why this case is being talked about the way it is.
Social media, yeah. That's where things get really wild.
Because now it's not just people agreeing or disagreeing with Mangione. It's about how those opinions get spread, twisted, and even used to attack people.
Right. It's like this real-life tragedy smashing into the online world, algorithms, echo chambers, online communities, all of that.
And this is where I think things get really interesting. So how is social media affecting this whole story? What should people be watching out for? So we've covered a lot of ground here. The healthcare system, this idea of violence as protest, and now social media. I gotta say, this is the part I'm struggling with the most. How does a guy accused of murder become some kind of online folk hero? It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's something we're seeing more and more. And it's concerning. Social media, it's so powerful, it shapes how we see things. And with this Mangione case, it's like we're watching how these online communities can turn someone into a hero, even when they've done something terrible.
So break it down for me. How'd this happen? How did Mangione go from accused murderer to, like, a symbol of resistance?
Well, there are a few things going on. First, there's the way social media works, the algorithms, right? They decide what you see, and they're designed to show you stuff that keeps you engaged, keeps you clicking and scrolling. And stories like this, they have a strong emotional pull, right? It's like this classic David and Goliath story, the little guy fighting the system.
So it's not even that people are, like, intentionally looking for information that supports Mangione. It's more like the algorithms are feeding them this stuff because they know it'll grab their attention.
Right. And the algorithms, they don't care if the information is true or balanced. They just want you to keep watching. So you get these echo chambers where people are only seeing things that confirm what they already believe, even if it's getting more extreme.
And in Mangione's case, what they already believe is that the healthcare system is broken, that it's rigged against them. And we talked about how that's a feeling a lot of people share.
Exactly. So you have people who are already primed to distrust big institutions, the government, big corporations. They see Mangione as someone who finally fought back, stood up for what they believe in.
Even though he killed someone.
That's the thing. It's like, for them, the ends justify the means. And then you throw in the whole true crime craze.
Right, you mentioned that before. True crime. What do you mean by that?
It's this thing where people are like obsessed with real life crimes, criminals. It's everywhere now. Podcasts, documentaries, shows, you name it. But it's become entertainment. And that's where it gets tricky.
Because it's easy to forget that these are real people, real tragedies.
Yeah, you lose sight of the human cost.
Yeah.
And with Mangione, that's what's happening. He's become a character, a meme. There's fan art of him, free Luigi merch. It's this weird mix of activism, entertainment, and like morbid fascination.
It's kind of creepy, honestly. A man was murdered, his family's devastated, and people are treating the guy who did it like some kind of rock star.
It just shows how social media can distort things, play on people's emotions. And it's not just this case, it's happening everywhere.
Yeah.
With politicians, conspiracy theorists, it's all about crafting a narrative, whether it's true or not.
So what happens now? What's going to happen to Mangione? Will he go to trial?
That's the big question. He's looking at some serious charges. First-degree murder, that could mean life in prison. But this case, the way people feel about it, it's so unusual. His lawyers, they've got a lot to work with.
So they'll probably say all this media attention, the stuff on social media, it means he can't get a fair trial.
That's a common strategy in these big cases. They might also try to portray him as a victim of the healthcare system, like he was so desperate, the system failed him, he had no other choice. They'll talk about his chronic pain, the manifesto.
And what about the gun, the fake IDs? How do they explain that?
That's going to be tougher. That makes it look like he planned this, that he wasn't just some guy who snapped. They'll probably try to downplay it, focus more on his mental state, how he was feeling leading up to the shooting.
So this is going to be a long, complicated legal battle, and it'll play out in the court of public opinion just as much as in the courtroom.
Definitely. And whatever happens, it'll have consequences for other cases, you know. It sets a precedent for how we handle cases where social media is such a big factor, how it affects people's perceptions, and even the legal system. It makes you think about free speech online, the responsibility of these social media platforms, and how important it is to be a critical thinker, especially online.
Man, there's a lot to unpack here. What started as a murder investigation has blown up into this huge thing, touching on so many different issues. The healthcare system, social media, how we even define justice in this digital world.
It shows how much the world is changing and how we need to change with it, how we think, how we act. This case, it's not over yet, and we'll keep following it. But for now, we just want to encourage everyone to stay informed, keep asking questions, and stay engaged. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We always love to hear what you think about all this, so let us know.